So, ladies and gents, as John Wick Chapter 4 leads the box office, global success, $137.5 million. Absolute, just a huge success, both domestically and internationally. We always have to wonder what the ramifications are moving forwards. Well, Shazam! Fury of the Gods has utterly bombed during its second weekend. I mean, it didn't make any money anyway. It hasn't broken even yet. It barely touched its sort of production budget, which was like $125 million. Goodness me, why did you spend that much money on this film? But furthermore, this also puts another nail in the coffin for Ant-Man 3 as well, because that film hasn't even broken even yet. Lots of evens there, I do apologise. So this is just drop after drop after drop. And when we report on things like, John Wick Chapter 4 being a huge success despite, hedge fund investment companies that back majority of movie Hollywood studios, this film being a huge success, and then the studios which are backed by these kind of companies, it goes to show that people will go to watch a film if it's good. They don't really care about the messaging. They don't really care about the representation. They don't really care about who's in it or what's going on, right? It's a very small percentage of people that give an absolute rat's ass about that. And also, this signifies what I think, which is a dwindling interest in the average comic book movie. I still think there's interest in comic book movies, superhero films. Don't get me wrong, I really do. I'm not saying that they're done, but I think that this shows there is a dwindling interest in the average comic book movie, right? Shazam! Fury of the Gods was a film which was just a bit of nothing. It's essentially two old ladies and a dragon. A CGI one at that. Obviously, you can't get a real dragon, I get that. But then also, like for like, you've got Ant-Man and the Wasp. A movie which should have been a major player. It's the introduction to Marvel Phase 5, introduction to the brand new villain of the next couple slates, etc. And yet that bombed as well. Monumentally bombed. So both films represent the dwindling interest. Shazam represents the dwindling interest in the average comic book movie. And Ant-Man shows the dwindling interest in just comic book movies in general. Again, we still, people will still go watch comic book movies, of course. But let's take a look at this, right? Because this is a huge bomb for both these films. So John Wick Chapter 4 arrived in theatres this weekend, and as expected, it completely obliterated Shazam! Fury of the Gods at the North American box office. Now, Chapter 4, John Wick, debuted to $73.5 million. That's just domestic. And then also earned $64 million overseas for a global start of $137.5 million. Now, big few days for Lionsgate, but a weekend to forget for the DCEU. A 68% second week drop. That is just so big. That is huge. Ridiculously big drop off. In fact, I don't think that's the biggest for a comic book movie thus far, but it's probably equal to Ant-Man and the Wasp second week drop. I think they did like a 67 point something drop or something along those lines. Basically huge drop offs. Now, the Shazam sequel made only $12.1 million in its second week for a US total of $56.1 million. Holy shit. That is bad. Even more disappointingly, $102.4 million worldwide. That's all it's done worldwide. Goodness me. This film had a budget reportedly of $125 million just production. You also, of course, have marketing costs on top of that. This is a big old flop. Absolutely gigantic. Really, really, really bad. However, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, limped to $209.9 million at the end of its sixth weekend, with $470 million worldwide. Goodness me. And everyone that reported on this when it came out, they were like, oh, this is the biggest opening of an Ant-Man film. Who cares? Ant-Man, $519 million. bearing in mind, ladies and gents, one thing to consider with all of these numbers is you've got to adjust for inflation. So ticket costs are higher. You also have to adjust for, in the US, they introduced variable ticket pricing, which is not something which the US had experienced before. Not to the degree that it's been rolled out. So that factors into it as well. So all these numbers, this $470 million worldwide, or $209.9 million domestic, that figure is not actually indicative. You can't compare it like for like with the original film. You still can't even compare it with the second film at $622 million globally. It is absolute bomb. Now, all of these numbers, Disney CEO Bob Iger, yeah, he's been talking about no sequels. Do we really need sequels? Do we need, a third, a fourth, a fifth movie in a sequel? And which almost seemed directly referencing Ant-Man when he said it. Now, the interesting thing is, will The Flash do any better? And I think this is an interesting thought experiment, right? Is because that film is being sold, not on the title star, it's being sold on Michael Keaton. Now, we know for a fact, we have historical reference to claim this as a near certainty, is that all comic book movies have an element of FOMO, fear of missing out. It's whether, you go and watch it on that first weekend. You're interested, you go watch it. That's it. That's that weekend to watch. Now, will there be enough people to watch The Flash opening weekend to solidify its success? Because the second week drop will be big for The Flash. And the thing about that is, if there's not enough people to come out and watch it opening weekend, what if word gets out that actually there's not enough Michael Keaton, or Michael Keaton's not good in it? Or, the Michael Keaton stuff's good, but the rest of it's garbage. Who knows? I don't know. This is just speculation at this point. But it's one of those interesting questions to sort of thought experiment through. But yes, the waning interest in comic book movies. People have been saying it for an age now. Comic book movies, there's a superhero fatigue, etc. And I say, for a while, I've been saying that there's an element of superhero fatigue, but primarily it's just bad movie fatigue. And I do agree. I still think that that's the case, but I think now people are quicker to be harsher critics of comic book movies, and they don't want the average comic book movie, because the average comic book movie currently is substandard. And you only have to look at the box office performance to show for that. So there you go. John Wick 4 absolutely obliterated Marvel and DC, made them cry. And mark my words, they will be pissed by this. This is not something, you can just sort of wish away. They will be very, very frustrated by this. This is not good. Marvel has lost money on Ant-Man and the Wasp. DC has lost money on Shazam. Millions. To the tune of millions. Shazam, 100 million, easy. Ant-Man and the Wasp, difficult to quantify further. But yeah, you could probably say that that's lost somewhere in the region of 100 million, easy. Not good. Not good. But let me know what you think down below. Interesting point for discussion, I thought. So let me know your thoughts. Are you interested in comic book movies? Are you not? Do you see what I mean about dwindling interest in the average comic book movie? People, I think, will still turn up for bigger event films, but the average just pump them out. One pump chumps they're not interested in. So let me know what you think. I'll be keen to hear it. If you're new here, do hit subscribe, give the video a like, and please do share it. If you want to support further, we've got memberships, we've got Patreon. It's all linked down below. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Take care.